Ever feel like, you're clinging to a rock and the whole world's trying to like pry you off?
Ooh, I like that image.
Yeah, it's kind of how I pictured this whole idea of unwavering commitment, which is what we're diving into today. Like, how do you stay rooted when everything's shifting around you?
It's a question for the ages, really.
Hmm.
And people are always, searching for that solid ground, especially when life gets chaotic.
100%. And the source material we're looking at today, it doesn't beat around the bush. It dives right in, saying it's not about just like flipping a switch and becoming superhumanly disciplined. It's about finding a different kind of strength.
It's like, imagine trying to swim upstream against a crazy current. Exhausting, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
But then someone throws you a life preserver. You're not relying on your own power anymore. You're clinging to something that can actually keep you afloat. That's kind of the idea here.
Yeah.
The source argues that real commitment, the unshakable kind, it isn't something we just muscle our way into. It's about anchoring ourselves to something way bigger than ourselves. Christ.
Yeah. And they use this really vivid analogy. They compare it to, like, imagine a ship caught in a raging storm, right?
Okay, I could picture that.
You need more than just a skilled captain or a strong crew to survive that. You need that heavy anchor dropped deep into the seabed to keep the whole thing from being smashed against the rocks. Otherwise, it's game over.
Precisely. And the anchor, the thing that provides that unwavering stability, that's faith, the source says. But it's not just faith in the abstract sense, it's specifically faith in Christ's promises. The idea being that when you trust those promises, really trust that he's going to come through, that he's faithful, well, that's what roots you, even when everything's going crazy around you.
And they bring in Hebrews 10.23 here, which kind of sums it up. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promised. So it's like our commitment, yes, it's not this isolated struggle. It's actually rooted in a faithfulness that's way bigger than our own. What do you think about that? Does that idea of faith as an anchor, does it click for you?
It's a powerful image, that's for sure. And what strikes me is that this source, it doesn't shy away from the reality of storms. In fact, it kind of suggests that the storms themselves, they're actually part of what makes that commitment stronger.
And this is where things get really interesting. The source goes on to talk about how challenges, those tough times, those aren't meant to destroy us. They're meant to refine us. Just like gold gets purified by fire, you go through the fire and what's left is stronger, more valuable than before.
Absolutely. Going through those crucibles, facing those trials head on, that's often where the real growth happens. It's like, think of your commitment as a muscle. You don't get stronger by just thinking about exercising. You have to actually push it, challenge it, and sometimes even tear it down a little bit for it to rebuild stronger.
It's like James 1.2-4 says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, consider it pure joy, my friends, when you face trials of many kinds, because, going through those tests of faith produces something really valuable, perseverance. And perseverance, it's not just about gritting your teeth and getting through it. It's about letting that process shape you, make you more mature, more complete, not lacking anything.
Right.
Finding joy in trials, though, I'll admit that's not always easy. But the point is that those trials have a purpose. You know what I mean? They're not just random suffering. So I'm curious, have you ever been through a situation where, looking back, you realize that pushing through that hard time actually made you stronger?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Countless times, really. And that actually leads us to what I think is the most important part of this whole idea of unwavering commitment. It's not enough to just talk the talk, right? It's about putting in the work, taking action. What good is a car, even the most powerful, expensive car, if it just sits in the garage?
That's a perfect analogy.
Right. Turning the key is important, sure, but you need fuel, a working engine, and someone behind the wheel who actually knows where they're going to make that car truly go.
Love it. It's all about actually putting those commitments into practice.
Exactly. And this reminds me of Colossians 3.23, which says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. It's about approaching everything, every choice, every action, with this deep sense of purpose, dedication, as if you were doing it for someone you deeply respect and admire.
So if unwavering commitment, this deep level of dedication, if it's not passive, what does that actually look like day to day? What's something in your own life where you feel that fire, that drive to really give your all, where you're not just going through the motions? What makes that different?
That's such a good question. I think it's the one we should all be asking ourselves. Because really, this whole deep dive, it all comes down to action.
Totally. We started with grounding ourselves, finding our anchor in Christ, then explored how those inevitable storms, those trials, can actually refine us, make us stronger. And now we're seeing that it all culminates in actually living out those commitments, not just talking about them.
Exactly. And to wrap up with that in mind, here's a final thought for everyone listening.
Mm.
If true commitment, real dedication, if it's about action, what's one small step you can take today, right now, to more fully live out your values?
Mm.
What are you going to do to shift from simply believing to actively living out your commitment?
Love that. Something to chew on for sure.